Hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, depending on when you're listening to this video presentation of the Cisco Cybersecurity Operations Associate Module 4. So it is a lengthy module of 28 sections. So we've looked at the first module, the danger, we've looked at the operating systems, we looked at the SOC team, the defenders. So today we want to look at one of the very important operating system that we need to know as cybersecurity experts, which is the Linux operating system. Now, this is just an overview. Your good usage of any of the Linux distribution like the CentOS, Linux, Kali Linux, Ubuntu, Parrot, any of them is fine. One of the things you want to be able to do is to be able to manipulate files, understand file permissions, be able to detect malware, and explain some of the components of the GUI, the doc, and the what was it called? Your CLI. Be able to use most of the things within your environment. Be able to edit files using tools like Nano or Vim. So those are my two most favorite tools I used in editing files, making changes, and the rest. So aside these 72 slides I'm going to be explaining, I will do a separate video using Kali Linux to demonstrate the environment for you so that you can follow up in the hands-on and practicalize most of the skills. Linux is a free open source tool that anybody can pick up and adjust. It's a very powerful tool. It's open source. The user have a lot of control. So that flexibility makes it at times hard for you to make changes because you must follow the permission rule of the Linux environment. So in a SOC center, in a security operations center, Security Onion is a very nice tool that you want to have in your arsenal. You can look it up. We have a lab on this Security Onion, so we're going to be exploring that. Also, some of the tools you're going to have in a SOC center or in a SOC is Wireshark, is a malware analysis tool. Any of them of your choice. Like in our forensic course, we looked at Pest Studio and several others. Then you have intrusion detection system. You have firewalls, log manager, SAM, ticketing system. So why do you need ticketing system? For any incident that happens within your IT infrastructure, you want to keep a log for it. You want to raise a ticket rather. For instance, if you have an issue with your bank, if you have an issue with your card, if you have an issue in workplace and whatever, at times a ticket is going to be raised on your behalf so that you can keep track. So a ticketing system is very important in a SOC, that is Security Operations Center. Now, this is what the Kali Linux environment looks like. So we're going to do a separate video to try to demonstrate this. You have about 14 sections. This is what Linux 2021 looks like, or the 2020. Yes, this should be the 2020 environment. So you have the tools in different categories. So you have information gathering. So if you go to information gathering, you see things like Nmap, Multigo. If you go to vulnerability assessment, you see things like OABZAP, you see things like BobSuite. If you go to a web application analysis, you see things like not SQL map. In database, you see things like SQL map. In web, you see things like you can see BobSuite there. You see Metasploit and the rest. Armitage, WP Scan. So you have tools in different categories, right? In sniffing and spoofing, you see things like Wireshark and the rest. So you want to familiarize yourself, at least you can give yourself a target to familiarize yourself with at least one or two tools from each of these categories. For instance, some of the tools that do web application analysis can also do database analysis, or the tools that do web application analysis can also do vulnerability analysis. So this is what the Kali Linux environment looks like, which is one of the distribution of Linux. So you have several distributions of Linux. You have Kali Linux, you have Parrot, you have CentOS, you have Ubuntu, and the rest. So working in the shell. So what does the shell looks like? So a little bit similar to the Windows CLI, but has its own different commands. So there's quite a number of commands that you need to familiarize yourself with. And I'm going to be doing most of these things in the separate video I'm going to do on the Kali Linux environment. Stuff like move. If you need to move files, if you need to change permissions, if you need to change ownership, if you need to copy data, if you need to uh, or rather see which directory you are on, if you need to see the processes, if you need to log in as a super user. Okay, and of course you have all of this. You have ifconfig for um Windows, you call it ipconfig. If you need to remove packages or install packages, use the apt-get. You can be using apt-get install or apt-get update. We'll do quite a lot of this, right? In a separate video I'm going to be doing for the hands-on. These are more text file. So a tool called Nano, it's my favorite when I need to edit text files. So you see it, you can cd into a directory, open a file, you can make edits to it, and these are some of the guides. If you need to exit, you need to use Ctrl X, you exit. If you need to save, you say Ctrl S, you save the file. Don't worry, we're going to do this practically. So I'm just going to go through this slide very, very swiftly and fast. Now you need to understand client and server communication. A good number of hardwares, especially lightweight hardwares, some communication devices, your routers, switches, your watches, IoT devices, they run on Linux. Your hosting service, for instance, a good percent, about 70-80% of hosting service around the world is run on Linux. You can check up that statistics and verify it. So it can be a plus or minus 10 or 20. Now, for those Linux servers, they are going to act like servers where you host your website. And also, where you have your client, for instance, your browser, your phone, you have your server, your website, you're going to be accessing, and you call a server that guy that's going to provide information to a client. Then the client, that guy that's going to request for service, right? Now, as a cybersecurity expert, a pen tester, a cybersecurity personnel, there are several protocols that you need to learn. If I were you, I will get a list of about 20 of them, understand the port numbers, their description, and their application. For instance, for port 2021, for which is FTP, SFTP is secured file transfer protocol, whereas TFTP is trivial file transfer protocol. All of these things are for transfer of files. What are the kind of tools that use them? You have FileZilla, you have CopyCop, you have Dreamweaver. Secure shell. So if you are to remotely log into an application or a network, you could use this. Telnet. Here, Outlook, right? Domain name server, any hosting service, any domain name service is going to use this. Dynamic host configuration protocol. Most routers, switches, and servers that are going to assign IP address. I did a lot of explanation on how these things work, especially for DHCP, when we ran our Cisco IT training. That's the Cisco Information Technology Essentials training. So I think there's a module that has to do with most of these things. So it was explained in great detail. Here, you're going to be understanding most of these things so that you see the role they play. Because you're going to ask yourself, why am I learning most of these port numbers? I should be able to know the secure, the unsecure, or the plain text protocol and the secured protocol. For instance, FTP is not secured. SFTP is secured. TFTP is not secured. Secure shell is secured. Telnet is not secured. SMTP is not secured. DNS, except you patch or you install security on this server, it's not secured. Of course, NTP, you should know why I need NTP. Your routers, switches, your servers, they will need to have a global clock. right? Like a time that you need to be sync with. Question you ask yourself is that when you're connected to a server, how does it know, okay, you spent 1 day on the server, you spent 10 days, you spent 1 year, so your service expires? Or for instance, a simple router that you have at home or in the office, if you connect, if you go to your logs, you can tell you, okay, so MAC address, so systems are connected for 1 hour, this one is connected for 30 minutes. How does it keep track of that? It uses the network time protocol. Of course, this guy and this guy, they are for emails. So if you're configuring things like Outlook, and if you're configuring things like emails within your phone, maybe from a server, you're going to be told to choose either this or this. I'm going to give an assignment. Which one of them is secured? So that is the reason why you're learning most of these things. You want to learn them with security in view. Okay, clients, I've already explained that. Server administration. So what does cat command do for you? Well, I will demonstrate this in a separate video. It just helps you to read a file. So I'm reading a file inside a niche inside the etc directory, right? Same thing is happening here. Same thing is happening here. Cat etc. This etc is a very important folder in Linux. If you tamper with it, if you delete it, is invariably it's just like when you go to your Windows file and you delete your program files or you delete your system32 files. It then means that you're not going to have access to that system. You like destroy the system. That's how important folders are. Those folders are in within Linux. The etc folder, the var folder, and the rest of other important folders. So the cat command can help you read the this particular file. You want to read the NTP configuration file, right? So you say cat etc NTP config. So this file is domiciled in the etc folder. Here you're just reading it here. If you are to edit it, you can better use the nano command, nano etc NTP wherever. It will open it up, then you can now make changes to it, and you can now control S, you save, you can now control X, you can now quit. Same thing is happening here. Hardening. So you need good passwords. You need to always update your operating system to make it secured. So one of the things that you do to harden your devices, system hardening, Linux hardening. Ensure physical security. So physical security is a very important component in cybersecurity. So that's to say that if you have the best PC, the best router, the best switches, the best server, what will happen is that if somebody have physical access to that particular device, that particular IT infrastructure, it's as good as gone. It might be hardened, it might be secured software-wise or hardware-wise, but you're going to have or you're going to lose business continuity. That's to say that you need files, you need things within that system or that particular server, and you cannot have access to it because anybody have access. That's why you see things like for staff only. You see things like admins only. You see things like a padlock. You see things like access control doors. You see things like authentication to access a particular room or a particular place where you have most of this IT infrastructure. So best practices are physical security. That's the first layer you have. Then minimize the installed packages. For me, for instance, whether I'm running on a Linux system or I'm running on a Windows system, I really don't install what I don't need. Right? I put in only exactly what I need. And some tools and applications are going to do more than one, two, three functions. So why now put in so many packages, so many applications that you're not going to use? Because most of the times you forget to update them, thereby you making yourself vulnerable. Unused services, disable them. Port numbers that are not active, look for them, disable them. You could use TCP view until some of these tools, some of these services running and you disable them. And of course, the rest of them. Ensure strong password, please. Don't reuse old passwords. Okay, so Linux have different types of log files in categories. It can be application, it can be event, it can be service, it can be system. Okay, so where does it keep them? var folder, right? Log subfolder, different types of messages. So these are the explanations, right? So when you have errors, that's where you go look up for things, because if you see your log files, you're able to tell what the error was and you can easily fix them. Then, just like we did in Windows file systems, in Linux, in Windows, we normally say FAT32, NTFS, and the rest. In Windows, we say ECT2, ECT3, ECT4. So these are the different types, and the maximum size type they can take, right? For your exam, especially, you want to know these differences, please. And of course, NFS, CDFS, and swap file system. Okay, mount. So how do you assign a directory to a partition? So when we do our hands-on, we are going to be using a Cisco CyberOps virtual machine. I will introduce that to us later on in the course. So Linux is very, very strict when it comes to permission. And there are three that are possible. Read, which you call R, write, which you call W, execute, which you call X. You're going to ask Mr. Victor, why can't we use E? So that's nomenclatures for you. Web developers will normally say CRUD, create, read, update, delete. So do you have permission to create a file? Do you have permission to be able to see, to be able to read a file? Do you have permission to be able to update a file? Do you have permission to be able to delete a file? So, okay, this is very important. ls command. So you could, just like in Windows, you get into a directory, you can say dir. For Linux, you say ls. So you list all of the items within that folder. But for Linux also, if you put the added -l, you're trying to get additional information about that file. So this is it in place. You say ls-l space x. So you don't only get this particular file, you get the details. For instance, it's telling you the read-write permission, who owns it, the date it was created. Are you there? So we're going to run some of these things. So this is just it. Read, write, and also execute. If you run a Linux hosting server, you're going to see this in play, right? I just hope I can be able to remember, add it up to some of the things we're going to be looking at in the physical labs. Okay, hard links, symbolic links. So this is the difference between hard links and soft links. So locating hard links is difficult. Symbolic links show that the location of the original file. So normally you could create a link, a soft link from a hard link. Okay, the GUI. Yes, so Linux is not only CLI, command line interface. It also have a GUI. So the GUI is based on the X Windows system, and this is what it looks like, right? Depending, you have different flavors depending whether you're using CentOS or whether you're using Ubuntu or whether you're using Kali Linux or whether you're using Power. These are some of the most popular Linux distributions. So this looks like Ubuntu, right? It has a top bar, it has the apps menu. For Kali is somewhere up here, the apps menu, and you have this dock, right? Ubuntu is a very popular and user-friendly Linux distribution. Yes. So the apps menu. So it shows you, or if you tap here, you see all of the apps installed. These are some of the recent activities, some of the most recent apps that you have used. Okay, working with a Linux host. So if you have a Linux operating system, you will need to update or install. So what command do you use? You use the sudo apt-get update, right? If you do sudo apt-get update, what you do is that you like update the operating system. And that's one of the first thing you want to do when you sign up or you log into any Linux distribution. You want to update it. If you update it, you have less issues. It's easier for you to be able to update applications and install applications because most of the time they are based off of the operating system. So these are the commands: app install, app remove, app get update, app get upgrade. So I'm going to run these things hands-on. Maybe in a 30 minutes video, I will demonstrate most of these things. Okay, processes. So processes tells you what is running on the system. Forking. So if I want to fork a repository, if I want to duplicate a repository, if I want to copy a repository, that is when you run, for instance, this command: app install Wireshark, or app get install a particular link online where that repository is. What it does is that it's just going to pick up that file and download it right within your system. Okay, what else is important? Malware. So you need to be very careful too. If I ask you which is the most vulnerable operating system, what will be your answer? You can pause the video and guess. So it's a game of numbers. So the guy that has, for instance, if a hacker is to hack the Mac operating system, the number of people using Mac operating system cannot be compared to the number of people using the Windows. So the more people use a particular operating system or a particular gadget or a particular thing or whatever, the more that thing becomes vulnerable. The more you have more people, more persons with less knowledge about security on that platform. For instance, if you have 30% persons that are not knowledgeable in security use a particular operating system, and it's 30% of 100 million persons. So that is 30 million persons are vulnerable. So if you have an operating system that you just have 10 million users, 30% of those persons that don't understand security and cannot patch up the system or stay secured, 30% of that is 3 million. So let's assume that you have Windows users 100 million, Mac users 10 million. So what do you have? So you have more hack value, more gratification, more susceptibility of an attack in the Windows environment compared to the Mac environment. Not that the Mac is more secured, no. It's because you have more persons on that platform. Same thing for Android, iOS, Android, and other operating systems for mobile. Because Android is open source, is everywhere, and you have more devices running those devices, those operating systems. So of course, more people will now be susceptible to an attack. So it's easier for a hacker to go look for persons using Windows than to go look for people using Mac. Rootkit check. So this is a tool. So you can use this tool to check if you have rootkits. So rootkits are they try to infect the kernel of your operating system, and that can be disastrous. That's like your root, like your the core of your operating system. So I say sudo dot slash check rootkit. So it asks you for the password. Once you enter it, it starts checking and telling you whether you're infected or you're not infected. Piping command, when you want to combine more than one command together, you can use the piping command. So you're using more than one at a time. Okay, what else is more important? Please log on to your Cisco LMS. And this video is very important. Though I'm going to do some hands-on in a separate video, please watch this video because it's very, very explanatory and it's a hands-on video. It tells you how to install and update application within the Linux environment and how to use the piping command. Please and please check it up. Take your notes. If you have questions, please ask on the mentorship group. Okay, that is all for the Cisco environment, or rather for the Linux environment, and this is some of the things we've learned. Thank you very much. See you in Module 5.